Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And it is real, and it is here. Today I'm going to give you my overview of the Phantom Stranger Omnibus from DC Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. That's right, it is finally here. After 3.5 years, almost 4 years, of being in the catalog, being solicited, canceled, I think canceled a total of 4 or 5 times. It's actually here. With one little delay, but that's okay. It's real. It's finally here. The Phantom Stranger Omnibus. We have a beautiful cover here by Neal Adams, so that is new. The placeholder, I believe, was from another issue, but also by Neal Adams. You have the spine here with the character, the Phantom Stranger. The Phantom Stranger Omnibus, the DC logo down there. And then this picture of both Deadman and the Phantom Stranger. Is he man or ghost? Sly, trickster, or master mystic? Are you going to get answers in this book? Probably not. Not to those questions. Down here is the ISBN and the retail price, $150. Now let's take a closer look at the book here. Here are your flaps. I'm just a stranger, and I'm here to help you. He's gone. I wonder who he is. That's a good question. The inside of the book, so underneath the dust jacket, you have art on board here. And the spine of the book. I do love the fact that his cape wraps around the entire book. That's a nice touch. There we go, so you can get a better idea as to what it looks like. All right. We are going to crack this open. Now, usually when I do these overviews, sometimes I like to go in depth and talk about the first arc or the first issue to kind of get people to pitch. I'll be honest with this. I just got this 3 days ago. I've read just a handful of stories. There's only one comic book in here that I had read in the past. That everything else, 99.9% of the stuff in here is brand new to me. So I just handpicked some stories to kind of get an idea of what comics are collected in here. So I did not read the entire thing, just throwing that out there. 3 days to read something like this. Woo! I'm a fast reader, but not that fast. On top of that, I had other stuff to read too. So let's go ahead and open this up and show you the artwork and the reason why I decided to get this. So let's go ahead and open the omnibus up. You have some black end sheets here. Phantom Stranger Omnibus, Neal Adams collected cover artist, and Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, so Superman does show up through these pages. That's actually one of the stories I read in here. Here's your table of contents. Now, the important note here for people that are collectors of the original comics or like to keep these as pure as when they were originally released. So it states that some of the stories in the Phantom Stranger 1952 series were re-edited with framing sequences from the second volume published in 1969. Those tales are presented in their original unedited form, but have been arranged in the most logical reading order. So that is for people that collected these originally and expect to find the same kind of reading order as when they came out. But honestly, after reading some of the stories in here, I really don't know if there is a particular reading order to Phantom Stranger. And kicking it off is the Phantom Stranger #1. And this is a character that was created by Carmine Infantino and John Broome. And this collects the first 6 issues of that series, and then the series was canceled. Here's your table of contents, by the way. It also collects stories from Phantom Stranger 1 through 41, so not the whole thing, because there are backup stories that are not collected in here. And then stories from the saga Swamp Thing 1 through 13, Who's Who, the Definitive Directory of the DC Universe number 18, The Brave and the Bold 89, 98, and 145, Showcase number 80, Justice League of America 103, House of Secrets 150, DC Superstars number 18, Secret Origins number 10, and material from DC Comics Presents 25 and 72. This book has 1,246 pages and retails for $150. And it all kicks off with this question: who is the Phantom Stranger? So the earlier series were, and I think it's an anthology series, and this is the first time it's ever been reprinted. I don't think there are archives of the Phantom Stranger. I know there were some showcases, I think one or two volumes, but this I remember being a big deal when this was in the catalog 4 years ago, because people were freaking out that for the first time these stories were going to be collected in an omnibus format, or for that matter, in any kind of collected edition. So the first 6 issues have never been collected. I know they've been reprinted in other comics or magazines, but as far as a collected hardcover, or even in the showcase, the black and white collections, these were never collected. Now, I read, actually, I think I ended up reading 3 of these. The first one with Anne, and then the next one with Mira. And they're all pretty much the same type of story. The Phantom Stranger is dealing with somebody that's kind of being suckered into believing in the occult, that they're being haunted by ghosts, or their shadows are walking, and it's pretty much somebody that's kind of manipulating them because they want to be the inheritors of this money that's coming to the main character. There are people that are being tricked into donating money, and Phantom Stranger just kind of walks up and he's like, "Hey, I'm the Phantom Stranger. That dude's a liar. You don't need to believe him." And that's pretty much what those issues felt like. There's no real supernatural elements to them. You're just led to believe like something supernatural is happening. Yes, kind of like Scooby Doo. Yes, I said Scooby Doo. Now, that is the closest thing I could relate it to. So, a lot of the artwork in here is by Carmine Infantino and Frank Giacola providing the inks, John Broome writing the stories, and over here in the table of contents, they will let you know who the cover artist was. So that's really cool that they did that. I love when they're as detailed as possible. And yes, we do have number pages, unlike the Green Lantern Corps Omnibus. They gave you a table of contents, but no page numbers. All right, so then in 1952, I guess these books weren't really luring people in, and the series eventually got canceled. So fast forward almost 2 decades later, in 1969, they kind of revived the character with this amazing cover right here. This cover by Neal Adams with Showcase Presents number 80. They bring back the Phantom Stranger. This time around, Mike Friedrich is the writer, and Jerry Grandaniti is the artist of this particular book. So I think this is DC kind of testing the waters with this particular character, to the point where I guess it's sold enough that DC decided, hey, let's go ahead and give the Phantom Stranger his own ongoing series again. This, now we're looking in the late 60s or early 70s. So we do have the return of the Phantom Stranger now as an ongoing title. This time around, his original creator, John Broome, comes in with Mike Friedrich, Carmine Infantino providing the pencils. And I noticed something this time around, like, you never really saw him in the first 6 issues take his hat off. But this time around, whenever he takes his hat off, he looks a lot like Boris Karloff. And it might just be me. I don't know. I'm sure he's really based on somebody the way that Carmine Infantino drew him. But Neal Adams is providing the covers for these. Now, I read just a couple of these, and these are a little bit different. These actually have to do with demons and the occult. So much so that he gets kind of reoccurring villains through these pages. There's the character known as Tala, the Queen of Darkness, that shows up through these pages. She keeps coming back, almost like his arch nemesis. And then there's also the Tanarak. There she is right there with a beautiful Neal Adams cover. This is the one that I read because it features Neal Adams' internal artwork, which this is beautiful. And let's keep going here, because eventually the reason that I got this was because eventually this artist came on board and took over the run. And that is Jim Aparo. And Jim Aparo, to me, is the definitive Batman artist. He's the Batman artist of my youth. And I didn't come to love Jim Aparo until much later, in I think in my 30s, when I realized, oh, when people keep asking me who my favorite Batman artist is, it's Jim Aparo. I really like his art. And I got to know him through his issues of Batman post Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think most people probably got into Jim Aparo in the Bronze Age or Silver Age. But yeah, I became a fan of the way that he drew Batman. He drew the Batman of my childhood, so it's the blue with the yellow emblem on his chest. This one here. And this is where, remember when I said that he deals with supernatural elements here, solving crimes? As a matter of fact, sometimes it feels like he shared a comic with this other character named Dr. 13. And like Dr. 13 almost plays a bigger role in one of the books that I read from this run. And I had to read this one because this is Batman, the Brave and the Bold. It's the first time we see the Phantom Stranger interact with somebody outside of his own little corner of the DC universe. And this is when the Hellerites, I think is what they're called, come back to Gotham to fulfill a prophecy. So they're all or like they used to live in Gotham, and eventually people of Gotham kind of exile them away because they blame them for the death of a child. So they curse the city of Gotham, saying they would return one day with all this powerful ghost. This guy is supposed to be the reincarnation of Josiah Heller. And that's when the Phantom Stranger gets involved. But it's really cool because, like, Batman tries to take down the Phantom Stranger because he doesn't know who he is, right? And then the Phantom Stranger's like, hey, stop. So it kind of shows you a little bit of the power that the Phantom Stranger has. There's some more artwork by Jim Aparo. Jim Aparo inking his own stuff too, and we'll see a little Jim Aparo later on because there's a Batman and Outsiders books that's collected in here. There's Ice Giants, and they keep coming back from time to time. So I guess he had kind of a reoccurring villains, but he was a lot like Doctor Strange during these particular issues here. At least the ones that I've read, where he's dealing with supernatural forces, where he's dealing with demons. And there's another Brave and the Bold, but I didn't get to read that one right there. Um, it and he, but he doesn't have the supporting cast that Doctor Strange did. At least that's the way that it felt like when I was reading. There's no reoccurring or returning characters from previous issues, just villains sometimes. And then, of course, the crossovers. And oh my gosh, this is the reason why I picked it up. And the reason why I picked up the Spectre Omnibus was because of this type of art. And I don't have the original issues to compare them to, but this looks like it's beautifully restored. Just looking at this Jim Aparo artwork right here and the lines and the composition, my gosh, he was so good. All right, this is the other one that I read because this is the Justice League issue. I didn't read it because this is the Justice League issue. I read about this because I read it, and I'm just coming completely honest, because I remember this being part 2 of that trilogy with the first Marvel DC crossover that was done by a lot of the creators behind the scenes, like Len Wein and some of the editors. While there was a convention, they were like, "Hey, why don't we write ourselves into the comics?" And that's exactly what ended up happening. So Jerry Conway, Steve Englehart, Len Wein, and Glynis Oliver all kind of wrote themselves into these comics of Amazing Adventures number 16. This is part 2. And then I found out about it through the pages of Thor. Oh my gosh. It was the one with Jerry Conway that was penciled by John Buscema. I think it was issue 206 or 207. I just read it a few months back. But it is really cool that they show up through these pages. The same characters that appear there. Yes, they're, comic book creators. But not only that, but at the actual parade, there are characters that are dressed up like Commando America and the guy with the lightning right here, Thor. But anyway, I thought that was really cool. I have no idea how they got away with it back then. Then we have Jerry Talaok come in as the main artist on the book after Jim Aparo leaves the book. We have some Deadman crossovers here, or Deadman actually guest starring. And one of the coolest things, I don't know if you noticed, like when he first appeared, the Phantom Stranger doesn't really have a cape. He has a trench coat. That's why he's part of the trench coat brigade that Constantine gave him. But then when he gets his own series, you start seeing him get that cape, and the cape is such a cool addition to the costume. It just adds so much badassness. So I think Deadman actually wraps up the series. There is... Actually, no, I have read a couple of other issues. I did read the Saga of Swamp Thing issues before. As a matter of fact, the Phantom Stranger is one of those characters that I really never followed, right? He's always been a guest star in some kind of comic book that I was reading. These issues of Swamp Thing brought back memories because I remember finding them at a young age, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have these original Alan Moore issues, and they were not Alan Moore issues. I thought I was going to get rich. Anyway, young 12-year-old Omar knew nothing about comics. Speaking of Swamp Thing, this is a really cool, and maybe somebody that has been reading comics a lot longer than I have and read these. In issue number, I want to say 14, if I'm not mistaken, there is a character that I thought was, yeah, right here, issue number 14. I thought was Swamp Thing. And I don't know if they used that as the prototype of Swamp Thing or not, but it is written by Len Wein, who of course co-created it, the character of Swamp Thing, with Bernie Wrightson. So if anybody knows, please let me know in the comments down below. See, we give and we take. It's that type of relationship. I don't have all the answers, and I sure as hell don't have all the answers for the Phantom Stranger. Okay, this is the other issue I had already read, too, because I did have a whole run of Batman and the Outsiders. Jim Aparo. Now you'll notice this is the art style that Jim Aparo is doing. This is the way that I remember him drawing. So going back, from this to something like this, I was just blown away by just how much detail he had. And I don't want to use the word sketchiness, or it feels like it's rough around the edges, but it just looks so good. Looks so good. God. This is the story of Tanarak. But yeah, this is the way that Jim Aparo cleaned up, I guess, and polished his art style. So there's the Outsiders. There's the team up with Superman and the Joker. Okay. This was the story that I remember reading. This is the one, because when I was reading about DC Comics, I wanted to know everything. I don't know if anybody else was like that when they were kids. When you first start reading something, you discover Batman, you move on to Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and you're like, okay, but what about the Demon? What about the Spectre? I want to know more about them. And I remember, I think it was Legends that got me into them. It's the crossover Legends that got me trying to find out who was who. And this is what I picked up. And I was so confused because in this particular story, this is so cool. So you don't have an origin to the Phantom Stranger. You don't have his first name. You don't even have like an explanation of his powers. It's kind of vague. And I think a lot of writers, as they continued writing the character, probably took that and just said, all right, I'm just going to make it as ambiguous as possible. So in this, they give you 4 origins of the Phantom Stranger. That's so awesome. And this one, he's talking to a priest. And this is kind of a take on the Wandering Jew. It's just like, it's that old story about a man named Isaac and his wife and a young son in Bethlehem during when Jesus was a child and all the children were killed because of the massacre of the innocents. And during the whole Passion of Jesus and the crucifixion, he pays somebody to go and beat Jesus. And after the crucifixion, he repents. And he spends his life helping people. And like I said, it's all biblical. Not just this one, but there's, I think, 2 others, including the one by Alan Moore. And he is supposed to be the Wandering Jew. The second origin story is very similar. It's biblical times. He's a man that was spared by an angel during one of God's wraths. Like, he was spared while his family and friends all died. And he decides to take his own life. And his penance is to just walk around the earth because he questioned God's actions. So the angel forbids his spirit from entering the afterlife and then reanimates his body to walk around the earth. The third story, I really like this one because it ties it into the Crisis. It's a scientific team that are exploring a Big Bang, and it's about the end of this universe, and it kind of leaves you questioning, like, wait, has the Phantom Stranger existed in every incarnation of the Earth pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths? And then the final story is written by Alan Moore. And this is talking about how he could be a fallen angel. So the origin is left up there to people. I think in the New 52, they might have given him another origin. Here he is. This is another piece by Jim Aparo. And this kind of gives you a little bit of the information, the little information they have. And of course the biographies. And as I look through these biographies, my gosh, so many of people just have gone. The end sheets. And now let's talk about the binding and the build of this book. 1,246 pages. It is sewn binding. And one thing I immediately noticed, because I thought they were going to use the same paper stock as the Spectre. Really like the paper stock that they used in the Spectre. If you have that book, or the 1960 series that Marvel has been doing. But they didn't. As a matter of fact, the paper stock that they're using in this is thinner than the Batman Detective Comics by Peter Tomasi Omnibus. So there is some bleed through coming from opposite pages if it's light colors or if it's white, which there is some because this is where they used to put the ads. But you can see the caption boxes and you can see the frames coming through. Or like I said, if it's something like light colors, you can see some of the art from the opposite page come through. So if that stuff bothers you, that is something to keep in mind. And as far as the way the book lays over, here's an example of a spread page right here. Minimal gutter loss. It's still a little bit, but just minimal gutter loss. Doesn't affect your reading experience because the word bubble is just all the way over here. And now I wanted to look at one more spread page to kind of give you an idea. So it's the way it looks. Like I said, minor gutter loss, but gutter loss nonetheless. And that's just the way the eye lays over. It's not too small though, but it's also, we've seen bigger. Forgot to note, yeah, there really are no extras outside of those biographies. That's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcon at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book. Let me know in the comments down below if you plan on picking it up, if you already picked it up, if you've had it pre-ordered, and yes, if you were worried that it was going to get canceled and surprised that it finally came. Let me know also in the comments what other books you would love to see DC collect from this particular era. I was completely new to 99% of the stories in here, so I'm glad to add it to my collection. And I hope they continue, I really hope they continue House of Mystery and House of Secrets. Those are among my favorite collections that they've done. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.